Hey, this is Robert McNaughton. We're here at the Integral Center in our beautiful meditation room. I'm here with Dr. Kunov, and this is a check-in. This is going out to everybody who's following us on our fundraising campaign, and also this is an opportunity for us just to be with each other and say, hey.
Check-in time. I can do that.
So I think the one thing I wanted to talk about and to share with everybody here is just a review of, we're coming up on 2 years of when you and I took over the building from Jeff Salzman, and with this really big vision of bringing authentic community building and the work that you had been doing in San Francisco with Brian, and bringing that into the Integral community and doing it under the Integral banner. Yeah. And just kind of this big gamble, and it's been quite a ride. 2 years.
Yes, agreed.
And so reflecting on everything.
Yeah, that's just coming up for you, that like checking in with you all, supporting us and supporting the Integral mission we're all a part of. Yeah. You're getting all sentimental about it and remembering where we started.
Totally, and I've been saying this a lot through this campaign, is that this flood has been a tremendous excuse for us to feel into more of who we are and why we're doing this, and actually be like, oh, yeah, what are we doing here? And oh, right, I actually do want to do this. Yeah. And
re-choose it.
That's a blessing. That's been really fun. And I'm just realizing today that there's probably a lot of people watching this video who haven't either met Decker or haven't met me, or or maybe to one degree or another don't really know what this Integral Center thing is all about.
Yeah. And then there's probably some of you who are not even sure what the Integral thing is specifically either. Yeah. We're always talking to 5 different imaginary people listening, but I'll throw a few things out. One thing that's been fun about working and creating together with Robert and Jeff Salzman and a lot of the Integral crew is that I was undercover bringing Integral practice and personal development out into, you know, relationship coaching and all kinds of different fields under the hood. And then you were from the opposite direction. You were like explicitly directing marketing for Integral Life, like the flagship for Ken's work. And
that's right.
So it's like we came from opposite directions. And I remember for you, you were like, let's have the balls to just call it something like Google would, or Facebook is like, let's have our own name instead of something about Integral.
Yeah, let's not call this thing Integral.
Yeah, we're good on explicit Integral stuff, and for me, I'm like, no, this is my first chance to actually own the deep philosophical underpinnings of what we're doing, and yeah, it's making amazing results for people's communities and relationships. But I wanted us to explicitly call it the Integral Center before I even realized it was the name of the entity in Boomeritis. But so I just think we've been able to cross-pollinate by me coming in with fresh energy to like insist on making sure there is an explicitly Integral Center in the world for people to, a mecca for us to keep practicing, and to work with you where you've already been a part of it for years, and make sure that it's translatable and practical and relevant for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
which makes these videos really hard to shoot, because now hopefully we're doing our job, which means some of you want to hear more about Integral and some of you haven't even heard about what it means yet.
That's right. Yeah. I think that was where I first realized that we had something new here, where I'd been in the trenches for Integral for a number of years, but I wasn't getting my own itches scratched around growing in community, and actually, like, I had a lot of challenges, and I didn't, and so when I found through Brian,
you had the theoretical maps to understand your challenges, but not necessarily the raw in the trenches place to
and I had a lot of practice. I was working with a lot of really awesome teachers and things like that, but there was just something that was missing.
The day-to-day.
And I met Brian Baer, who was your business partner, and started Authentic Man program with you and Authentic World, and through my men's group here in this building. And I had no illusions that this had anything to do with my Integral vision or anything like that. I think I was already a broken-hearted refugee by that point, and kind of disenfranchised by the whole Integral vision. But when I remember coming out to San Francisco and doing circling training and being like, okay, this is my family. Like this is the kind of people I want to marry. These are the kind of people I want to be my best friends. This is the kind of way of living that I want to have. And I was like, I'm in. Just tell me give me marching orders, I'm in. And then, we're talking, and you were like, no, we're going to Integral. We're going to do this with
We're going your way. You're
like,
our family.
Oh, well, okay. I guess we have to start something new then.
We can't just jump ship either way. We're going to have to actually create a new ship.
And then we did the first Alethea, which was the first circling training explicitly under the Integral banner. And everybody just showed up for it. We were hoping for 10 people, 48 people showed up for that first one.
Yeah.
And it is right at the same time that Jeff was getting tired of not having his vision play out here in the building and was ready just to, fold. And we got to have that great conversation with him and kind of spark that integral vision again, and got to hand the keys of the castle over.
Yep.
And that takes us for the past 2 years, brings us to now.
Well, to now where Robert got to have that day-to-day conscious community to really practice, not just for a training or for a meditation retreat, but in the trenches enough to get the flip side of community is where transformation happens like I've never seen. But God, the drama, the projections, the assumptions of how everyone else should be, I have to actually work through that stuff it's that's why most teachers would rather write a book about it, because God, this is
I was talking to Jeff about this yesterday. It's if you want to experience what it's like to be unenlightened and very human, step into community and step into a leadership, step into a role in community, and that is the ride of being a human right there, just full on. And I really can't recommend it more highly, even though it sucks to not be enlightened. It sucks to feel edgy and to hurt people and to be hurt and to be sad and all of that. But I can't think of any better reason to be alive than to really feel the textures of being alive. And all within a context of this is community as a practice, where we're actually holding a container of, we're doing this in service of better community.
Nice.
And so it doesn't just stop when I get upset. It doesn't just stop when we figure something out or whatever. It's all kind of like an experiment that we're fully breathing into.
Yeah. So if you've listened this far and are familiar with meditation or any sort of personal conscious evolution practice or path, Integral is the first time that I've found something that acknowledged what I'd already been noticing, which is it's not just a potpourri of cool insights and cool states you can have, that there's a trajectory, that there's a relationship from insight to insight that builds on the one before it. No one had ever really mapped that out well, other than child psychology. Maybe Piaget or somebody's starting to show some stage development, but Integral was it to show something that I had already been, and my buddies had already been experiencing. Every time we got our ass handed to us, it was a new, terrifying, humbling, and elation-rich jump that was built on the one before it. So Integral brings a sense of purpose instead of just sampling cool insights, and it's only integral to the degree that it's applied or enacted.
Yes.
And the flood, what better way to actually have us make sure that we're not just lost in theory, not just lost in making sure we're evolving, but that it's practical and applied to something that matters. And and that, frankly, that's one of the reasons that I felt compassion for Jeff and some of the Integral leaders in Boulder, because Boulder is cutting edge in consciousness in some ways and
out of touch with reality.
God, it's a little utopia bubble. I was like, oh, San Francisco is pretty incredible, but it's expensive, and not that it's cheap here, but expensive, and people have to work their asses off in San Francisco, and we're constantly doing projects and philanthropies and throwing parties as a fundraiser, and maybe I felt a certain way about the way you didn't acknowledge me or you acknowledged someone else, and good for you. We may have the luxury of unpacking that and get the Mackie speakers in the truck before we have to pay a late fee for the venue. Having some real gross level practical reality checks to wake us up out of boomeritis, for Integral people who've read that book, out of any narcissism of, oh, I'm just trying to grow spiritually. God, I was in San Francisco. I come back here and the energies feel so good. The ways it's felt good without a lot of the other things you've been dealing with. Like, it's just amplified of the good stuff happening here by having something to get our hands dirty in.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I think for anybody out there that has ever just been like, well, okay, great, philosophical ideas, who cares? Where does it matter? I've really gotten to taste that in some deep ways, and that it's not just a good idea, but it's a better practice. And like what we like to say, it's a better game to play. You know, if we're gonna spend a night being with each other, let's bring in some of the more exciting ways to be with each other. But like, we had this conversation with Clint Foos where he was saying, you know, Ken basically just saw that he was doing something different in the world that boiled down to 3 basic practices of more humility, more discernment, and more enactment. And that it's really simple to lay it out like that, but the way that breaks down into reality is that's where the rubber hits the road, when we're enacting our beliefs.
I love the fact that they've boiled it down to those 3 integral practices. And so I don't want to skip over that. The first one, we talked about enactment, getting your hands dirty. If it's not applied, it's not fully integral. But those first 2 that you mentioned, humility and discernment, before we get too global about it, let's just consider practicing that in our own relationships. So if we're actually practicing that there's at least a partial truth in every perspective, that it's humbling in the sense that the thing that someone does or says or believes that I do not like, that I don't feel open and connected with them if they're going to behave that way or believe that thing, is a growth opportunity for me. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't change. They may be doing something unhealthy. And if I can't be loving and connected to them from whatever political viewpoint, religious viewpoint, weird and idiosyncratic this or that, there's a growth opportunity for me no matter what.
Yeah, and I like the point there that the places where we need our capacities for humility the most are usually the places where we have the least access to it. So when we're really sure that this person is out of touch with reality, I have the answer for them, they need to know it if they would only stop talking. If there's a way we can, and that's what we practice here, is building that muscle to be like, maybe this is a time where I should listen more and even repeat back what I got, and know that there's truth in this perspective, and I should actually take this opportunity to celebrate it if I'm contracting so much around needing it to be another way.
Even if there's less truth than not in their perspective, if I am contracted and if I'm triggered in some way, first and foremost, there's a growth opportunity for me if it's an integral practice. And that is humbling.
Deeply.
That's humbling, like the best of religion. That's humbling the way Christ can be crucified, tortured to death, and still have nothing but compassion and love and goodwill for the people torturing him. I have people close to me, if they talk to me the wrong way, I'm a little bit bitchy about it. So integral practice is humbling right off the bat, in that it is integral, that it is inclusive and honoring of everybody where they're at.
Yeah. And
this is where it gets dicey. If it's really integral, it's also acknowledging that just because everybody's right doesn't mean that some people aren't more right than others.
That's right. Especially if we want to go somewhere. And that's where it gets tricky, because it can be easy to say, like, everybody's right and nobody's better than anybody else if, it's just the cosmos.
Free for all, yeah.
But if we want to go build a camp at Burning Man, or if we want to throw a party, or if we want to pay the rent here, and that's where I've had the gracious opportunity to learn this.
Or if we want to have a planet, an ecology that is going to support any fraction of the species alive on it now.
Yeah.
If we have any commitment to any outcome, then yes, we can honor everybody as perfect right where they're at. And if it's an integral practice, you're also going to be practicing discernment of noticing which perspective and which stances are most life-affirming, most honoring. So if we're practicing being honoring, some people are more honoring than others, and that's okay.
Yes.
And if I'm really practicing it, it's including humility. So if I'm triggered, there may be something I'm picking up on that is a blind spot of yours, or there may be something I'm missing. Yeah. Maybe I'm agitated and irritated because I have the blind spot. If it's really integral, there's a level of co-exploration in our relationships that it's a whole other game. And it's where this idea of a relationship being a spiritual practice, not just a convenience or a pleasure in life or a pain in the butt in life, but an actual practice for growth is if you're willing to treat your relationships like that, where any place you're not loving and honoring of anything is an opportunity for your growth and then exploration to see who's where can we get on the same page, and what's the opportunity for a more loving and more inclusive perspective.
And I would say it's like likely one of those, humility or discernment, you might have more challenge with. And that's something I've seen, that some people, this whole idea of like everybody's right and they're, that's harder for some people. For other people, it's that my idea may be better than yours. And the way I see this project, the way I see what's better for our future generation is more relevant, and I'm going to choose to do it over yours. Like that, that's more challenging for some people, and it could be both.
Yeah, so consider for yourself right now, if it was more edgy for you on one of those sides than the other, what would it be? I know, for me, the realization of inclusivity and honoring everybody where they're at, I built a whole career out of that practice. Yeah. Being with this much on the line and this many different communities and different perspectives all at once so fast, I've been forced to grow the other side, develop the other side of like, actually, I think this person's perspective is superior to yours. Without diminishing your perspective at all, I have an opinion, and I'm willing to take the risk of owning that and keep a question mark on the end of it. There's still room to explore, and we got stuff to do.
Yeah, it's like, so which book triggers you more? Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, or The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Nice.
Or which inspires you more? And then that brings us to coming back. You mentioned in the beginning the enactment principle, that both of those have their own muscle for enacting. We can enact humility by like relaxing my self-righteousness, and we can enact discernment by exercising my choice and my ability to say this. And then what we practice in most here is an enactment as an integral leader of being like, actually, there's another kind of conversation I want to be having right now. What we call intentional dorky guy muscle, of being like, hey, let's be a little more intentional about what conversation we're going to have. And like being.
We got a half hour left of our lunch. Let's have one group conversation for the next 15 minutes, or actually declare.
Let's get back on the agenda of this meeting instead of like,
making sure that everyone feels heard.
Yeah, exactly. And
nice.
That's the integral enlightenment, is that, the postmodern enlightenments, we're enacting our reality all the time anyway, is that like, even though we may say there's no one right way, I'm saying that that's the right way when I say that. We're always enacting, the way we want the world to be, but the more consciousness and choice we bring into it of deciding which kind of conversation, which kind of reality we're going to enact, that's an integral move.
So my request is to consider, first of all, what's edgier for you, inclusivity or discernment, and now in the service of enactment, consider a conversation you can have where you either take the time. If there's someone in your life has been doing that you've been annoyed with, I'm fed up with that, disconnected from, consider this an opportunity to take time to explore what's going on for them. Hey, when you refuse to get up early in the morning, and I'm a morning person, right? Whatever, even something that mundane. Nice. Take the time to get what it's like for them to wake up. If you really explore what it's like for them, when you wake up, do you know you're awake while your eyes are still closed? Or do your eyes open and then you kind of realize you're awake? Like, get into the minutia of their experience to wake up even, so much so that they'll start discovering what it's like for them to wake up. So choose a conversation to have where you're going to more ritually and not just theoretically say everyone has a right to their perspective, but really be with someone in the very perspective that you tend to get annoyed with.
Yeah.
Or if your edge is more on discernment, consider a situation where it could be better. Or in our first conversation with Ken around circling, it could be gooder. That with a light touch, not having to, if it's integral, you don't have to villainize someone else to justify declaring what your value is. You don't have to dismiss or demean anything, but just because you're inspired by it, what is something you could declare and invite someone into that you think would be more uplifting, more meaningful, more of a contribution to people around you?
And these are both like not new ideas or new practices. When you think about it, these are simply the things that all human beings do when they care a lot. So like when you're falling in love with someone, you just can't help but want to know every little minute detail about how they experience life. And when you care so much and you're so angry or you're so upset or something like that, that you demand that a different kind of conversation happen, like these are all very human things. What we've just found is that we can choose to have them when, you know, someone's not on their deathbed, or not just when we have a crush on someone, that like actually we can see our priorities in our life and where we want to go and use the best tools available. That's all Integral is about.
It's international. It's got a lot of electricity. A lot of you watching this have been supporting us already. Thank you. And it just keeps growing.
Yeah. Well, I hope this has been a good opportunity for you today to, if nothing more, just get to know Decker and I a little bit better and know what we care about, and receive our invitation to come play. And if there's actually something that's kind of pecking at your mind, like enact it and send us an email and say, you know, ask a question. Like that's what I love more than else, when it's people that don't understand, they care enough to get some information about it. We love that.
And if we don't respond to your email promptly,
it's Decker's fault.
We're used to people just showing up and helping themselves right into the center, and sometimes that's what it'll take. Come on in.
Yeah, help us grow this experiment. Thanks for watching today.